Hi, this is Lynn from farmerbookshelf.com, and today I wanted to share the books that I read in May of 2022. And I am wearing She's Reading Again How Novel shirt. I love this shirt. I love wearing bookish t-shirts for these videos. So today I want to talk about my May reads. I had a fairly good month. I listened to one book on audio and I read 6 books, so 7 books total. Which is relatively good reading month for me. We had a lot going on, so I felt like that was a good accomplishment. I had a couple books I really enjoyed. It was a good historical fiction reading month for me. So let's start with the first one, which is a historical fiction book, Carved in Stone by Elizabeth Camden. She is kind of one of my go-to authors when I need a clean, kind of somewhat cheesy, easy to read romance. This is a Christian romance. She's one of my go-to authors. If you like really clean fiction that is clean but has a good storyline and haven't tried her books, I recommend her. Like I said, these books aren't for everyone. I needed an easy read. I had read a couple heavy books and I just needed something that I could breeze through. I like fairly clean books. I don't like a lot of bad scenes in my books. I like it to be clean. So I like it to be PG, maybe PG-13. I would say this is really clean. This is a book a teenager could read. So this book is about a woman scientist who meets a lawyer who is from, I believe, Ireland. And they meet and of course there's a love story, but there is family secrets, and she is wealthy and he is not, and it's kind of how their lives intertwine through this family secret. She is a widow and she is dealing with the consequences of some poor decisions her husband made, and it's just their story and their life kind of as they fall in love. It's not really a secret. You'll figure that out in the first part of the book. So if you, like I said, if you like clean romance, especially Christian romance, this might be an author you enjoy. For me, this is a good book to read after I've read a really couple of heavy books. So the next book I want to talk about is another ebook that I read. See if I can find the cover here. And it is Bluebird by Genevieve Graham. And I loved this book. I discovered this author a couple months ago when I heard her on an interview. I believe it was, the interview was on Friends in Fiction. They do a live author interview every week. And I saw her and I thought, that sounds really interesting. She's Canadian, so her books are set in Canada, which makes her a little bit different, which is why I like her, because I have not read a lot of books, nonfiction or fiction, about Canada. My grandmother was born in Canada, and I remember her talking about family in Canada. In Canada, she moved to the United States when she was a kid, but I remember talking about Canada, and I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, and I visited Canada. So I thought it was fun and interesting to read about Canadian history. Bluebird is set during and after World War I. The two main characters in the book fought in World War I. He was a tunneler and she was a nurse. And they returned to the United States, and it is Prohibition. Sorry, they did not return to the United States. They returned to Canada. It's set in Canada. But I did not realize Canada dealt with Prohibition just like the U.S. did. I didn't realize that they were people secretly making alcohol and selling it and running across the border, and all the crime and issues that happened because of it. Very similar to the U.S., although Canada did not deal with it as long as the U.S. did. I learned so much in this book, and that's exactly why I love reading historical fiction books like this. I would say it's a fairly clean book. It is during Prohibition. There's alcohol and parties and that kind of stuff, but of course there's a love story and there's family secrets and there is some drama. But if you like historical fiction and want to read something a little bit different and have not read anything by Genevieve Graham, I think this is a great place to start. I've got a couple of her other books or ebooks that I bought to hopefully read on vacation, because I really like her writing style. It's fairly easy to read, and I always learn something about Canada when I read her. So can't wait to read more by her. If, like I said, this would be a good book to pick up for the summer, Bluebird by Genevieve Graham. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is an audiobook that I listened to, and that is My Southern Journey by Rick Bragg. I have read several books by him, memoir style, about his family. Ava's Man. I think the other one is All Over But the Shouting. Those are about, I think, his mom and his grandmother, his life, his mom, his grandma. And I love his writing. He wrote for, or he may still write for, Southern Living and other publications. Southern publications. He just writes a very true picture of life in the South. He doesn't glorify it. He doesn't hate it. He just writes simply about growing up and living in the South. And a lot of it's about the poor rural South. And he talks about the lifestyle and the cooking and what makes it the South and what makes the South unique and the people unique. And like, it's a very honest look. He just simply shares about life in the South. And he read the audiobook. I listened to it while I was working on some house projects. This one's a little bit different because it's essay style. It is publications, like writings he's done for other publications that were put into a book form. I think the book would be great to read because it'd be easy to pick up and down because it is essay style. But I also really enjoyed listening to it on audio because I could like listen to it for a little bit and then stop and then pick it back up again. So I really enjoyed that one. Audiobook. It is My Southern Journey by Rick Bragg. This next one is, I wanted to love this book. It's the Compton Cowboys. This is an advanced reader copy I actually picked up for like $1 at a library book sale. I had bought this same book for my daughter for either Christmas or her birthday because she likes Westerns and she likes reading about cowboys. And I thought this would be a good book for her. She has not read it yet, but I did. And I wanted to love this book. It took me to a time, well, really, it's modern day time. So it took me to a place which is like inner city LA. Or near LA, I guess, because it's in Compton, California. But I didn't realize that there was farms and ranches like in the middle of the city in California. Obviously, I know that California has a lot of agriculture and stuff, but I didn't realize like in the midst of the city with gangs and drugs and everything else, there was ranches and a group of cowboys. So I wish this book had more hope. This book kind of covered more of the modern Compton Cowboys, and I wish it would have covered more about the past and the lives that it had changed because they were part of the Compton Cowboys and because they had been rescued from gangs and drugs and violence. But this book, I just didn't have a lot of hope in it. I did learn a lot. I'm glad I read it, but I guess I'd recommend it with hesitation. It just involved a lot of crime and drugs and alcohol, and the original, or the woman who for years had worked with the Compton Cowboys, retired and she passed it on to her nephew, and it was kind of that story of him taking over. But I kind of felt like it didn't share the story of how it changed lives because these people were struggling with drugs and gangs and alcohol and death. And some people like moved on to escape it. So I kind of wish this book had more hope. And I think if they had incorporated or the author had written more about like the past and how the Compton Cowboys in the past had changed lives, and then maybe to now, I don't know. This book just wasn't what I expected it to be. And I wished it had more of a story of hope. So I don't know, recommend this one with reservation. Like I said, I really wanted to love the Compton Cowboys, and I just really came away with mixed thoughts on this one. Okay, my next one was one that a reader recommended, Nourished by Leah Hubbard. I'm not sure how you say her last name. She, if you might be familiar with her writings, I think she has a show. And this was a good recommendation for me. I have a cooking website, if you're not familiar with that, linskitchenadventures.com, that I've had for like 12 or 13 years. So I love food. I love cooking, and I love memoir. So food memoir is almost always a good recommendation from me. So I love it when readers give me recommendations. This was a good recommendation. It is a memoir about food, faith, and enduring love. If I had to give this a star rating, which I don't do very often on books, I'd probably give it 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I read it. It was an easy read, but I really struggled with some of the decisions that the author made, and just the writing in spots didn't really flow for me. So I don't know. I like this book. It was a good recommendation. If you're the reader that recommended it, thank you very much. But if you're familiar with her, if you like food memoirs, you might like this. Like I said, I'd give it probably 3.5 stars out of 5. Nourished by Leah Huber, not sure how you say that name. Okay, this one is another reader recommendation, The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie by Alan Bradley. This is a cozy mystery or a mystery set in an English village in the 1950s. And I've had multiple, I mean, quite a few actually, readers recommend this series over the last couple of years, and I just have not picked it up yet. And I finally decided on a recent trip to Missouri, we went for a couple days, that I was going to take it with me to read. I read this in like a day. Absolutely loved it. I can't wait to read more in this series. A lot of times you can see in a series, especially a mystery series, how the author's writings get better. So I'm really looking forward to the next few in the series. The main, I guess, detective person is actually a child. I think she's like early teens, maybe 11, 12. I actually can't remember her age, but she's her father's a widow, and they live in a rundown, what was once an elegant mansion in England, and she lives there with her sisters and her widowed father. They have someone that comes in and helps with the cooking and the chores, and the setting was fun. It was unique. There was a mystery, of course. There's family drama, and it was a fun to read a mystery that was written or from the view of a kid or a teenager, that age frame, and it was a girl. So I will definitely be picking up some more in this series. Might take them on vacation with me later this month. I could definitely see reading these in the fall and winter, which is when I love to read cozy mystery. So readers that recommended this, thank you very much. I wish I had read this sooner. So it is The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie. And the last one I want to talk about is a book I absolutely loved, another historical fiction book. I had a great fiction reading month, and that is The Last Dance of the Debutante. I read The Last Garden in England by Julia Kelly a few months ago and enjoyed it. And my husband had a doctor's appointment, and I dropped him off and ran to the Barnes and Noble that was down the street. And when I saw this on the new release in the new release section at Barnes and Noble, I picked it up. I had no idea Julia Kelly had a new book out. I read what it was about, and I'm like, instantly knew I needed to buy this book. I bought it, and my husband's was not done with his doctor's appointment when I made it back there, and I started reading it right away. Read it like in a couple days. And I loved this because, again, this took me to a time and place I don't know anything about. I've read a lot of books about World War II and set in England, and I've read a few, like, especially mysteries set in England, but this takes place in the 50s in England. I think it was after World War II, and it was kind of the end of the debutante era, and I loved learning about what they went through, what their families expected of them. I just never really knew much about that world, especially in the 1950s. A lot of what you hear about that was books that maybe I've read like in the 1800s, but this was after World War II, so they're dealing with coming back from the war and war recovery, and what that did to the men and the young men, especially during that time period, and also the struggle of women. They were wanting careers and college, and they were not wanting to rush into marriage and family, but their parents and families were putting pressure on them to do that. So this is historical fiction. There is romance, there is a family secret, there is drama, and there is drinking and partying because it is about the life of the debutantes. But overall, this was fairly clean. I didn't feel like it had anything horrible in it. I would say PG-13. I know I have a lot of readers that like to know about that in the books. But like I said, this took me to a time and place I didn't know a lot about. And I love her writing style. Already bought a couple of her backlist books that I hope to read this summer. Again, probably on vacation. Vacation's when I read a lot of fiction, and I like fiction I can get through fast on vacation. So I can't wait to read more by Julia Kelly. If you like historical fiction set in time and place you haven't or don't know a lot about, I think you might enjoy The Last Dance of the Debutante. And that is what I read in May. I'll be sharing what I read in June next month. For more book lists, book reviews, book information, and more, check out FromOurBookshelf.com.